Hi friends, it's Kirsten. Hi friends, welcome back to another Bible study. I actually had all of this filmed and ready to go and be posted for you guys. However, when I went to edit it, it somehow had more than half of the video completely deleted. So the beginning part of this, I am re-recording and I look like this. And for the last half of the video, I will look different and be in different clothing, obviously. The last half is still saved on my phone and the beginning has vanished somehow. So I almost said, you know what, it's okay. We'll just post, going forward. But I know so many of you are following along on Instagram, on YouTube, from Instagram, here on YouTube, and I would just be doing everyone a disservice, as well as I know God has called me to share these, and me just giving up on one because of a technical difficulty is not what I should be doing. I should not be giving up on one video that's going to kind of break apart our series and where we are in our study, just because part of it was deleted when I can just go ahead and re-record the first half. So we are in John chapter 12, verses 37 through 50. And for this first half of me re-recording and looking like this, I will just be reading the first couple of verses. The rest of it was saved. So thank goodness. I thought more than that got deleted, but it was just a little bit. So let's go ahead and get into it right now. So I'm just going to jump right in and read verses 37 through 41 and then talk about it up until the point where my other video will kick in. So y'all will have a little bit of a split as to my appearance during this video. So starting in verse 37, "But though he had done so many miracles before them, yet they believed not on him, that the saying of Esaias," and it might be Esaias, I don't know. It means Isaiah. They're talking about the prophet Isaiah here. "The prophet might be fulfilled, which he spake, Lord, who hath believed our report? And to whom hath the arm of the Lord been revealed?" Therefore they could not believe, because that Esaias said again, "He hath blinded their eyes and hardened their heart, that they should not see with their eyes, nor understand with their heart, and be converted, and I should heal them. These things said Esaias when he saw his glory and spake of him." So just a little backstory on where we are and where we're picking up at. We talked a little bit yesterday about how these people had come to Jesus and they were all trying to understand, and God spoke from heaven. Some thought it sounded like thunder. Others thought angels were giving some glorious speech, but Jesus was able to discern, obviously, what God was saying and the reassurance that he promised him in the upcoming days leading up to his crucifixion. And it ended in verse 36, which says, "These things spake Jesus and departed and did hide himself from them." So Jesus kind of spoke a little bit. We went over that. And then he left and he departed from them. So now we are stepping into John is speaking, and John, y'all know, is the king of details, and he really loves to set the stage for each passage and letting us know what's going on, who is speaking, what's happening, really just letting us know everything and literally just setting the stage for us. So verse 37, John is trying to let us know that during the whole book that he's been writing, everything that he has witnessed and recorded Jesus do, all of these miracles, all of the signs, he's saying Jesus has done all of these things, performed all of these miracles in front of these people, or in front of people that have used word of mouth to let everyone know, because y'all know in this time they did not have cell phones, they didn't have social media, so word of mouth was literally insane then. So everyone knew, whether they witnessed it with their own eyes or they just heard of it, all these miracles that Jesus had performed, and literally the unbelievable signs that he had done in front of everyone. And he said that he has done this in front of you. You know about these miracles, yet they believed not on him. Because as we saw in the previous passage, these Greeks came to Jesus, this crowd was forming around Jesus, and he was talking, and before and after God spoke from heaven, they started having doubts. They started being like, okay, well, you're talking about your death, but and the prophecy that we read about the Messiah, the Messiah doesn't die. We don't understand. Like, they started having doubts. They were so certain and so set that Jesus was the Christ, the one that was sent from God to save them, obviously in a different sense than he really was. We've been over this before. But they were so certain that Jesus was the one. And now they're a little hesitant. They're starting to doubt a little bit. And so John, down in verse 37, is saying, Jesus has proven himself time and time again. He has shown you reasons. He's shown you signs and miracles that back up what he's saying is true. And yet you don't believe on him. So then what John does next is really, really interesting and really cool, is he starts quoting from Isaiah, which is Isaiah. I think I'm saying that correctly. I don't know. But he's quoting from the prophet Isaiah. Now, in this time, they have the Old Testament. Those are the only scriptures they have. Obviously, they don't have the full Bible that we have. But they know of Isaiah. They know of the book of Isaiah. They know what he has said and the prophecies and everything. So in verses 38 through 41, John is basically just quoting word for word from Isaiah. And Enduring Word, you guys know that is my resource that I go to for more understanding and more clarity. Enduring Word lets us know exactly what verses he's quoting from. So his quotes are from Isaiah 53 verse 1 and chapter 6 verses 9 and 10. And quite literally in verse 38 and in 40, it's those exact verses. And I went back to go and fact check because I was like, I just want to make sure what they're quoting is legit. I like to fact check so I'm not just relying on one source, right? And so I went back to Isaiah and I looked at those verses, and it's literally the same thing word by word. And I don't know where my other video will come in at, but I just want to say this, that John was just trying to give some kind of understanding to these people to realize that Jesus was the Messiah. He was who he said he was. He was sent from God. And if they weren't going to believe on his miracles, they weren't going to believe on his teachings, they weren't going to believe on anything that he's done in his earthly ministry, he was like, let me go ahead and quote something that I know y'all see as truth. And then maybe, just maybe, that'll open your eyes and make you think, maybe he is the Messiah. Maybe he is the Christ. If our scriptures that we've already had from before Jesus' time says these things, and now you're saying it again to us, maybe there's something there. Maybe there's something more that we're missing and we're not seeing. So we're going to go ahead and go into our next video. I think that's where I left off at. I love you guys. Bye. So then verse 42 says, nevertheless, among the chief rulers also many believed on him, but because of the Pharisees they did not confess him, lest they should be put out of the synagogue. So just going back, do y'all remember when we talked about the miracle of Jesus healing the man who was born blind? It's the last miracle we talked about. It's the most recent one that kind of set all of this in motion. Do y'all remember that he was interrogated by these Pharisees, by these religious leaders, and he stood firm in his faith that Jesus had healed him and that he had basically changed his entire life and saved him. And the Pharisees excommunicated him. They kicked him out of the synagogues. They said, you're not welcome to worship here anymore. They kicked him out. And he was okay with that because he was like, you know what? I've never been able to see a day in my life. This man just came, made mud, wiped it in my eyes, and I can see. If that means that I can't worship in the temple because I want to believe that that's true, so be it. So this verse is saying that many of the chief rulers also believed on Jesus. But thinking back to that story of the man who was healed, they kicked him out of the synagogue. So these Pharisees, these leaders that are actually believing on Jesus in their heart, are too scared to come out and say it and confess it and say that, yes, we believe too, because they don't want to be kicked out either. Verse 43 goes along with that too. It says, for they loved the praise of men more than the praise of God. And I love this because I think this applies to today's world so good, especially in the era that we're in of social media. Hello. That these Pharisees really valued the praise they got from people. They were able to have people look up to them and see them as these high people on a pedestal, and they were the Pharisees, they were the religious leaders, they were known, they were basically popular. If you compare it to social media now, they were the influencers of their time, if you will. And they didn't want to lose their status, they didn't want to lose their popularity or their fame because they believed in Jesus. So they kept that secret, they kept that tuck in private, because if they knew that if they came out and said it, no one was going to be there for it. They were going to kick them out, and they weren't going to, see them as famous and popular anymore. So verse 43 points out that they loved the praise of men so much that they would tuck away Jesus and their belief and trust in him to maintain that social stature, okay? And the end of that says more than the praise of God. So even if they came out and confessed they believed in Jesus and they were kicked out of the synagogue and they couldn't worship in the temple, they would have been valued and appreciated and blessed by God. But they didn't look at it that way. They saw, I could come out and confess this, God will be happy about it, or I could come out and confess this and everyone is going to hate me and kick me out of the synagogue and I'm no longer going to be known and famous anymore. So they valued what men said over what God says. They valued the reward of humanity over the reward of God. And like I said, that kind of comes up now with social media, right? And just our day-to-day life too. Just social media is such an easy analogy to use, is that a lot of people will hide things about themselves, hide their faith, hide their belief in God, hide their morals and their values to keep up with this image and this look that they have portrayed on social media. Because as y'all know, we gain followers on social media, we get subscribers, and the more we start sharing the controversial subjects that could be near and dear to us, we could start losing followers. They'll start falling off. For instance, when I started posting Bible studies and I started really posting what I felt like God wanted me to share, because social media is massive, share it to everybody, I started losing followers. I started losing engagement. I started losing the traction, and it affected me for about that long. And I realized that what I'm doing is so much bigger and has so much more impact than the fact that I'm just losing a few followers here and there because they don't like what I'm posting. And that's fine. And in the past, I've always, posted a few scriptures here and there. Like, I thought it was very well known that I was a Christian, grew up in Christian school. Like, I've shared my story before. But when I really dove in and said, I am walking with the Lord, I am letting him lead me, here is a platform that he's given me, and I'm going to use it to bring his glory. When I really dove into that and really started sharing more on that, I was like, oh my gosh, where are these followers going? Y'all knew I was rocking with Jesus. Like, what's going on? But you have to have that faith. You have to have that trust that no matter what, no matter the number on the top of your Instagram screen or your TikTok screen or whatever, that does not matter, because you are walking in what God has called you to do. You are literally standing firm in your faith regardless of what the world is doing and what they say about you. So I think this is so important, because these men of high status, these Pharisees, some of them believed in Jesus, and yet they turned their back on him and said, nope, who? They kept it private, at risk of being kicked out of the synagogue, at risk of losing their influential status. And I think that's something that we can learn from, and that's something that we can take and apply to our lives moving forward. So then we're going to go ahead and wrap up this study with the last few verses. It's 44 through 50, just because this is all Jesus speaking. So I'm going to read through it, and then we will go over and kind of dissect it afterwards. So verse 44 says, Jesus cried and said, "He that believeth on me, believeth not on me, but on him who sent me. And he that seeth me, seeth him that sent me. I am come a light into the world, that whosoever believeth on me should not abide in darkness. And if any man hear my words and believe not, I judge him not. For I come not to judge the world, but to save the world. He that rejecteth me and receiveth not my words hath one that judgeth him. The word that I have spoken, the same shall judge him in the last day. For I have not spoken of myself, but the Father which sent me. He gave me a commandment, what I should say and what I should speak. And I know that his commandment is life everlasting. Whatsoever I speak, therefore, even as the Father said unto me, so I speak." So Like I said, we're going to go ahead and break this up just a little bit. And starting in verse 44, the first 4 words says, Jesus cried and said. So he is speaking with authority. He is speaking with passion, with compassion. He is speaking to try to get these people to hear his words, to believe on him, because enduring word lets us know that this part that I just read is the last time that Jesus ever spoke to a crowd in public. These are the last words he said to a crowd in public. Not his last words on the earth, obviously, but all of his going around and teaching and preaching and speaking during his ministry, this is the last thing he said to a public crowd. I don't want to say to convince them, but to try to get them to heed his words and to believe on him. So kind of combining the end of that verse with the next one, verse 44 and 45, it says, he that believeth on me believeth not on me, but on him that sent me. And he that seeth me seeth him that sent me. So I love this because this is just Jesus emphasizing. Mind you, this whole speech that he is giving right here in these last few verses, it's stuff he's already said before. It's stuff that he's already talked about and we've gone over. He's like reiterating it. He's emphasizing it more with more passion. So the end of verse 44 and all of verse 45, he is emphasizing his unity with God. Remember, this is kind of what set the Pharisees off, is when Jesus initially, back a few chapters, he initially said that him and God were one. They were a unit. They were together in perfect unity. And he's reiterating that by saying, if you believe on me, if you believe the words that I'm saying, right? It's important that you believe in me, but it's more important that you believe the one that sent me. So he's showing that in these people hearing his words and choosing to believe and trust in him, that even more so, it's important for them to believe that God himself sent Jesus here, and creating that unity between God and Jesus and saying you can't have one without the other. You can't believe in one without the other. So if they say they believe in God, they have to believe in Jesus. If they say they're believing on Jesus for a miracle or whatever, that means they have to believe in the God that sent him. So again, just their perfect unity. He's already said this. Like I said, this is what kind of tipped the Pharisees over, a few chapters back, years back in their time. But he's just kind of emphasizing and reiterating that again. And verse 46, Jesus has already called himself the light of the world before. Again, he's emphasizing things that he's already talked about. But at the end of that, he says that whosoever believeth on me should not abide in darkness. So he cried and said all of this. So he is with passion. He's emphasizing that if you believe on me being the light in this world, you're good. But if you don't believe on me, if you don't believe that I am the light, then you will abide in darkness. If you do, you won't. And in verse 47, the last part I love, it says, for I came not to judge the world, but to save the world. So I went to Enduring Word again. I follow along as I'm doing my study privately. And Enduring Word said that him being born, him coming into flesh, into humanity, would not have been necessary if he was just here to judge the world. He could have easily done that from heaven in his deity, full glory. He did not need to be born and take on humanity to judge the world. He didn't need that. However, at the end, but to save the world, in order for him to give the gift of salvation and to literally save the world, save humanity, that is why he had to come into humanity, live life, have his ministry, and then die on the cross. That was the sole purpose of his existence in humanity, in a human form on this earth. If he was just here to judge the world and judge these people and judge us, he didn't need to come in and be a human. He didn't need to do that. He could have done that, again, in his full glory. But the fact that he said, I came to save the world, that is why he had to come here and be born into humanity. And then verse 48 says, he that rejecteth me and receiveth not my words hath one that judgeth him. The word that I have spoken, the same shall judge him in the last day. So he's already given us the benefit and the rewards of following him, of believing on him, accepting salvation. He's already given the benefits of it. The kingdom of heaven, having eternal life, living in the light, not being in the darkness, all of those things. Verse 48 is the repercussions, consequences of rejecting him and not believing on him. Is, he already said, living in darkness. and not having eternal life and dying. And right here in verse 48, it says, then you will be judged. So he says, if you believe on me, you'll live in light, you're going to be saved. If you reject me, you're going to live in the darkness and you'll be judged in the last day. In the last two verses, 49 and 50, I just underlined parts of them, so I won't reread the whole entire verses. Verse 49, the first part says, for I have not spoken of myself. And verse 50, the first part says, and I know that his commandment is life everlasting. So both of those verses together are stressing and emphasizing his submission to God. We talked about this, I believe, yesterday, and a couple of days now we've talked about how Jesus knew what was to come, but he also knew the reason for it, and that his sole purpose on this earth was to go to the cross and take the weight of our sins and offer us salvation and eternal life. Again, verse 50, I know that his commandment is life everlasting. That is God's will. That is his plan, is that after Jesus dies and he is resurrected, that is the gift that we are offered, and salvation is life everlasting. And verse 49, for I have not spoken of myself, the next part, but the Father which sent me. So that is just showing that he is submitting himself to God. Again, y'all know I've said this before, I'll say it again. Jesus was the perfect example for us who follow him and how we should live our lives. Like, he literally did it perfectly. He set the stage, he set the example for us to follow after him. And right here, he's just showing that he is living and has lived the life that is fully submitted to God, that is fully submitted to God's will and his plan, his timing, and his purpose. Nothing Jesus did was without God's blessing. Nothing Jesus did was something out of God's will. It was all in perfect obedience to God and fully being submitted to God. And I love that he says all of this in his last time speaking to a crowd, and he ends it with, but remember, this is in submission to God. And these people, these Jewish people, and everyone listening had the Old Testament. They had the scriptures. They knew who God was. They knew about God. They believed in God. And so Jesus is saying here, basically, y'all believe in God. You need to believe in the one that God sent, because we are in perfect unity. We are one and the same. And I am fulfilling his will because I'm submitted to him. He's like, I'm not submitted to my agenda. Like, I'm not here for me. I am here because it is God's will for me to come and through what I'm going to do on the cross, give you salvation and life everlasting. So that wraps up our Bible study for today. Tomorrow we are going to jump into chapter 13, and the title of that is Jesus Washes the Feet of the Disciples. So obviously, as having some Bible knowledge in my brain, I know what is to come and kind of how the situation goes down with like the Last Supper and him washing the feet. But as I've done before, and as I've said before, I will try to kind of block out that knowledge as we go through that and dig through it together. So with all of that being said, I love you guys and I appreciate you guys so much. Please make sure you're subscribed and have your notification bell turned on so you never miss a Bible study. As a reminder, these are posted daily and in real time. So go ahead and like this video and comment below maybe something you're getting from this, or if you're just happy to be following along, because I'm so happy you're here following along. And I will see y'all in tomorrow's video. Bye.